No one is ready for the day that's coming because the church doesn't teach the day that's coming. They replaced the teaching of the Lord about that day with their own version. And they've picked up and moved what the Lord taught, put it at the end away from us. And they call it rightly dividing. Here's what I call it, heresy. And, we should have had a firewall to protect us if the pastors did pull this nonsense. The firewall were to be the prophecy teachers who were supposed to stand up and go, no, they're making a mistake. And our lousy prophecy teachers, and I mean lousy prophecy teachers have agreed with them. They're of no use. And if you're listening to them, you've been misled, and you are not ready for the day that's coming. In the first 2 episodes, I showed you why the church is moved his teaching under false pretext and false premise. You can't do that. Today we're going to look at the kind of day that's coming that we need to be ready for. We get a glimpse of it in the Olivet Discourse. He talks about on that day, people fainting with fear and foreboding as they see what is coming on the earth. At the 6th seal, which is the same event, we see people of all levels of society hiding and begging the rocks and the caves that they're cowering in and anything they can hide under to fall on them rather than to face what they see, because of what they see that day is unlike anything they've ever seen before. Reality will be stretched on that day, and you need to be ready. The Lord tells us that over and over. You must be ready. And he tells us to pray for strength about that day. You're going to need it. That's why you prepare for it, so that you know it's a day unlike anything, but when it happens, it's the greatest day of my life. He's not asking for any heavy lifting from us on that day. What he's asking about us and to us is not to run like pagans, not to fall face down in the dirt, unconscious like pagans because you're so scared. No, you should be prepared for that day, and you're ready for it, and you understand. It's an incredible day. But he also talks about it in a little known chapter of Luke, because the church does not like going there. Luke 17, this took place before the Olivet Discourse, and he gives us some valuable information about that day. After telling the disciples that his coming, his revealing, is going to be like it was the days of Noah on the flood, and Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. And then he says, so will it be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, let the one who is on the housetop with his goods in the house not come down to take them away. And likewise, let the one who is in the field not turn back. Now that's very interesting, because he gives those same or very similar commands to a different group of people in the first century. The Christians who would be living in and around Jerusalem when the rebellion happened, right as the temple is receiving the abomination of desolation, when Jerusalem is encompassed by armies, they were told the same thing. They were told, don't go down into your house to take away your goods. If you're in the field, don't turn around and go back into your house. Get out, flee the area, and pray that your flight will not be in winter on the Sabbath, because that would make it even more difficult than it's going to be. And what he's doing here is giving similar commands, even though it's a completely different situation. He was talking to a relatively small group of people in the first century, the Christians, probably mostly Jewish, living in and around Jerusalem. I don't know how many, but a few hundred, a few thousand. But he's talking about a day here in Luke 17 that's going to affect hundreds of millions of people worldwide who consider themselves Christian. And he's saying on that day, don't go down into your house. If you're in the field, don't turn back and go into your house. But for an entirely different reason. In the first century, it was because they didn't have time. And I've explained that. Josephus actually paints the picture of what happened on that day. They needed to get out, and get out fast, because if they didn't, they would have been stuck in Jerusalem for 3.5 years of a nightmare situation inside that city, followed by death or being hauled into slavery by the Romans. If you got out early, you were fine. So when we come to this command in Luke 17, he's talking to us and he's drawing a parallel between the two events, informing us on that day, you need to be listening to me, just as the ones in the first century had to listen to me to get the best result on that day. That's what's going on here. That's why the instructions are similar, but also very different. But he's saying, don't go down into the house for a different reason. Look what he says next. Remember Lot's wife. Lot's wife, she was told, along with the rest of the family, get out of Sodom and don't look back, because there's nothing here for you anymore. Get out and take this journey into a new life. Do not look back. And he reminds us of that. That's linked to going back into your house. What he's saying there is, on that day, it's going to appear to you that everything you've amassed and accumulated here on earth is in danger. And he doesn't want us thinking about those things. Don't go back into your house to protect your goods, to protect your household. That's not what that day is for. You need to understand what it's for. You are also going to be exiting, but you're not going to be going from point A to point B on planet Earth like the people in the first century in and around Jerusalem. You've got a different destination. And then he says these ominous words, continuing to speak about that day. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. What he is saying is so important to us. He is saying on that day, if you're not ready to leave your life here on earth, you're going to lose the opportunity that is presented to you on that day. Conversely, if you are willing to give up your life here on earth that day, you will preserve it. That Greek word for preserve literally means bring to birth. It's a new life for you, is available on that day if you're ready. How are you going to be ready if you're not listening to him about how to behave on that day? He's giving us commands. Don't go down into your house. Don't try to preserve your life on that day. Be ready to give up this life here on earth for a new one with him. And then he goes on to say, on that night, 2 men will be sleeping, one will be taken, one will be left. 2 women will be grinding, one will be taken, one will be left. And the disciples ask, where? Where are they taken is what they want to know. And he says, where the carcass is, the vultures gather. In other words, in the air. Our destination is leaving earth to be with him, to bring about a new birth for us, a new life in a twinkling of an eye, as Paul would say. In the first century, they were literally going to a new place on earth. We are literally leaving this life, and he wants us ready to leave this life. He does not want us hiding in caves like pagans. He doesn't want us fainting with fear and foreboding on that day. He wants us to straighten up, he says in the Olivet Discourse. Lift up your head. Understand that your redemption has drawn near. Understand the day because you've been thinking about it and preparing it for it. And you've also been preparing your loved ones for it. Church is not going to prepare you for that day. And once you embrace what he says and you take it to your circle of friends and your family, you're going to be surprised to find out that most of them do not want it. They want what the church taught. You're saved, you're going. Don't worry about it. Just stay prayed up. It's going to happen when it happens, and it'll be over in a twinkling of an eye. It's not the kind of day he's pointing to, not in Luke 17, not in the Olivet Discourse, nor in the 6th seal in the book of Revelation. When that day happens, and it comes in conjunction with war in heaven, Satan is thrown down to earth, confined to earth, no longer having access to heaven. He has free access right now, anywhere he wants to go. He's the prince of the air. He won't be after war in heaven. He will be stuck down here, and the earth is told, oh, woe to you, earth, because he's come down in a great rage, knowing he has just a little time left. What's the first thing he does? It's rather frightening, because as it turns out, there's one of two places where we are going to end up on that day. Either we're in heaven with that huge group that represents Gentiles from every nation, the dead in Christ over 2,000 years, and those who are eagerly awaiting and ready to go on that day. We want to be there in heaven. But there's another group, and that's a group that is here still on earth, because we are told Satan wants to go after the rest of the woman's seed. The woman is that vision that John sees at the beginning of chapter 12, giving birth to a male child and all of that. This is that age-old problem Satan has with the seed of the woman. And look what we're told. We are told that literally in the Greek, he goes to make war with the rest of the children of the woman, the children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. These are Christians. What are they doing on earth? Because the Lord just came. Look at that word, rest of her seed, or the rest of her children. The Greek definition for that word is the rest, the remaining. The usage of that word is this way: left, left behind, the remainder, the rest, the others. This group down here on earth, they were part of a bigger group, but they did not go with them. When you want to show something left behind, this is the Greek word you use. This is who these people are. But they saw the Lord, and they saw that they weren't taken. And now Satan is going after them. And the way he goes after them is he brings forth the beast. And the beast is given authority, it says, to overcome the saints. We do not want to be here after that day happens. We want to be standing in heaven with that huge multitude. And it's simple. Listen to what he has to say. That's all I'm ever going to tell Christians. Do you want to know about the day? Listen to him. Oh, no, we rightly divide that. That's not for us. Yes, it is. The first two episodes prove it. And there is danger for Christians on that day. We're not talking about your eternal salvation. We're talking about whether or not you're ready to go with him on that day. He says, you must be ready. Church has been just awful in hiding these truths from us. If you want them, take them back. Receive the teaching of the Lord. Forget about me. You never need to come back here again. Go listen to the Lord. Now, if you're still looking for reasons to do that, then in the next episode, I'm going to talk about what the church tells you, that Paul is the first to talk about the rapture. The Lord never talked about the rapture, they tell you, but Paul introduces the concept of the rapture in his writings. That is an enormous lie, and we will reveal it in the next episode. He is coming a second time, we are told in Hebrews, to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. You are not eagerly waiting for him if you're not listening to him about that day.